Hello and welcome to this transit report. Not going live today because, I feel really quite buggered. I've had 2 years going of pancreatitis, which, in the knowledge that I know now and awareness, this is why I share what I share. Awareness is so important, and what I know now, that understanding I'm a projector, how my energy works, I can see that looking back. I went through many years, I went through 50 years almost, of deep bitterness. And if we look into the metaphysical records, bitterness corresponds to the pancreas. And so as a projector, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I never felt like I was really part of the program at all. The whole thing was very difficult to understand for me as a child right through my whole life, because not knowing I'm a projector, I got fully pulled into the homogenizing force of the world and became a super slave generator. Okay, looking back now, I can see that. And so I was never really truly myself. And as we approach this time, this window of change and transformation and transitoriness, being the February 17th today, we have today, tomorrow, and on the next day, something quite significant happening that no one will be talking about. This is the 17th of February, the beginning of the Chinese Lunar New Year for the Fire Horse, the casting away, the finishing of the Year of the Snake. And what will likely happen through the homogenizing force of the programming that we are all swimming in, because we're all programming each other on the collective consciousness level all the time. There is this, I can see in the spiritual circles, it's like, right, it's the fire horse. We're still grappling with what that means, but, there's a lot of narrative out there and a lot of projection as to what that is. And I'm not saying that any of the projection or the narrative is right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong. By the way, I've got a ponytail to celebrate the fire horse. There you go. I just did that to get the hair off my ears. Anyway, the hair is growing. Back to this fire horse. So we're all kind of informing each other about what this means for us, and it's wonderful. If you look at it, one of the things that we have been afforded through social media is this ability to share with one another, to share consciousness. This is not a time really to be, how do we put it, too hung up on the facts. It's really about an openness of becoming very aware of how much we each, through our own perspective, have gleaned in the program that we're in, the life that we live in. And we each have a storehouse of information that's very specific and defined to yourself. So what you're emanating out is very specific to you. There's no one else that has it. You have a database within yourself, within your memory, within your DNA, within your spirit, within your nervous system, all of that, all of the various planes of nature. You have a storehouse of knowledge that is very, again, differentiated to you, because you filter the field of consciousness uniquely to anyone else. Each of us do, and this is part of the program itself. An understanding that we are here to have an experience of the outside world as an inner witness. Knowing that the outside world is also witnessing yourself, your expression that is there. But the self that's being witnessed by the other is not the witness. Okay? Because we need to come back to, and I always bring it back to this, a binary consciousness. The body has its own consciousness mechanic and structure. It has its own geometry in plane of existence in which it exists and has its experience and its expression, its interfacing with what we call just a part of the spectrum of reality. Then we also have the other part of our experience, which is the witness. And the witness consciousness is simply just watching. It is that which causes the materialization of the physical plane to actually materialize. It materializes according to quantum physics through observation. Okay, the physical world has its being. It becomes. It drops out of oscillation or vibration, or what we could call vibration, but more a frequency. It drops out of the vibrational frequency field into matter when it's observed, but only when it's observed. And of course, we can only know that because whatever we observe, it is there. But when we turn away in quantum physics through the double slit experiment, we can look at that and see that when we're not looking, we're not watching, it is behaving in a different way. It is an oscillation, it is simply a vibrational frequency field. And then once it's observed, the instant, that's why it's quantum, the instant it is observed, it collapses into form, into matter, and also it carries the memory as if it was always matter. Look at that. Falling down there. Right. So, what we have coming up at the moment, that's matter collapsing down, right, back behind me. What we have at the moment with the transits, well, we're in the 17th of February right now. This is the beginning of the lunar year of the fire horse. This is, what do we understand when we look at the fire horse? Well, we're coming out of the year of the snake. The snake is very grounded. It is as close to the ground as you can get. It's the field of matter, of form again, the material plane. No legs, it's like right on the ground. It's fully feeling the earth. Interesting enough, the snake also represents vibration. If you look at it, the way it moves along the ground, it represents the sine wave of vibration, of frequency and vibration. And so, remember, vibration is a quality, and frequency is the oscillation of how often that pattern cycles or swings, or whatever the case may be, how often it oscillates between its two spectrum ends, passing a central point in that geometry. So the snake represents vibration and frequency, but also that of the earth, because it is very connected to the earth, right? It slithers along, it vibrates along the earth, the snake. Very interesting that we're going through that, and the snake sheds its skin. There's something from within that comes out from what was before. As we move into the fire horse, we're looking at a very different energy. The horse is still, it's not like a snake. It lives on the earth, of course, but this is a fire horse. And when we look at fire, earth and fire do not really go well together at all, because the earth will simply not, the fire just will not consume the earth. In fact, earth consumes fire. And so we see that this is a far more spiritual essence with the fire horse, a far more spiritual essence. There's a shedding off of the old material ways. If we begin to look, and I'm going to get to my point here with the transit that's taking place. This is a very special transit because there's two modalities and two disciplines here that I'm looking at, with the Chinese astrology, but, human design is also, part of its synthesis is the I Ching, which is also Chinese. Okay, so it's very interesting that is in place. Also with the origin system, with my sign falling down back there, with the origin system, that is also based upon the I Ching. And when I look at this, there's a wonderful correlation. And also when we look at the death and resurrection of Christ, we bring in another element again of our human story, our history. And that is part of what's being shed as well, is our history. You notice that history is always getting taken away from us. And he who controls the narrative of history controls the present moment and the future. What we know about history. Now the thing is that history is true, the true history. The biological understanding, which is the depth of the meaning, because the story, the history, which some would say is Rothschild's his story, because through the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, Morgans, all these different powerful families, they kept within their grasp the influence of power and the power of influence, and that was cast upon the people and has been for thousands of years. So when we look at what we have when we talk about history or true genetic meaning, continuity, what has been passed down to us through our DNA, there's going to be an awakening from the snake that is very earthly. A lot of that's going to fall away to the fire horse, which is this freedom. When you think of the horse, you think of freedom. You think of also there's something about the horse that they have this self-generated stimulation. When a horse gallops, a free horse in the wild, when it gallops, when it gets to its full pace, it is just a display of pure freedom. It is nature simply enjoying the freedom of being free. And that's what we're looking at moving into this new age. So, yes, it's the fire horse today, but we also, if we look at the human design knowledge and follow the transits here, we're still just part way through a gate, the gate 30, which is all to do with desire and transformation and longing. We have not completed that 6-day cycle. Okay, because then that hexagram passes on to the next one. And the next hexagram that's coming in the sun is the 55th gate. And this is when we mark in the calendar, this is the final 365 days, or however many days it is, for that full solar cycle to take place of the cross of planning. The cross of planning is finished, done. The last 400 years we've been under an incarnation influence, an incarnation collective background frequency that has been a constant influence on our nervous system, encoding of our DNA as to how we express and interact with each other. And that's been through planning. It's been through the contract. Okay, that's another big thing that we've had for the last 400 years, is this interesting contract, not just between man and woman and, through the marriage. Marriage has always been there. But notice how it's become very institutionalized. This is something that is new to humanity over the last 400 years, is this kind of institutionalization of humanity. The institutionalization, that's what the cross of planning was all about. It was the age of institutionalization. Okay, to institute is to instill into the other a very specific agreement, contract, bargain. That's what we've been under for the last 400 years. So again, yes, this is really powerful time. We have the lunar eclipse. We have, a solar eclipse happening with the new moon in Aquarius today. Powerful day. Powerful day today. But we want to be cautious not to just bolt the gate. What kind of horse are we? What kind of fire horse is being embodied here? What do we mean? Again, back to, we look at the snake, which is very earthly and grounded, and then this horse, which is also earthly, but this is a fire horse, this is spirit. The fire represents spirit. So what we're looking at is the freedom of spirit as we shed off the material ways that have been in place through the cross of planning for the last 400 years, let alone the many epochs and ages that came before that one, let alone those epochs and times, of which we still remember deep within ourselves, within our stories, but also we deeply remember in ourselves that our story, how things change. They go through these cycles and patterns, and these civilizations and structures and societies that just come and go and come and go and come and go. Yeah, we've never really been able to put our finger on the pulse as to what truly took place. But we know that we're here, and we know that we're evolving, because what we're experiencing even right now, as we through this huge transition, 2025, from 2020 onwards, it has been one hell of a show, right? One hell of a show. And we don't need to go into the mechanics. Well, we can look at the mechanics, but we don't need to go into the story of all of that, because what we could see was going on was this shedding of what we had held on to so dearly for so long. What our parents had to hold on to, or had to begin to let go of. The narrative, the propaganda, the influence of homogenization through programming, through media, through the movies, through music, through art, through everything. And we've had incredible triumphs as a species. But running all the way through is this, especially in the last century, at least 80 years, has been this almost unfolding of what's really going on underneath the surface. The shedding of the skin, the snake fully, we've really been in this process for a long time. Now notice when we got to the year 2000 till now, what happened to fashion? It's like time stopped. It's like nothing new really came through. Everything was just being rehashed. Where was the fashion? You can't really see much difference between the 2000s and the 20 noughties and the 20 teens and into the 2020s. There's just not much difference. Not much. It's very homogenized. We have reached the pinnacle of homogenization. We're all staring at screens. We're all, if you look at it, the crosser planning has achieved what it came to do, which is to have a plan to homogenize everyone into one, not coherent, but one living organism that is globalized. That's really why you would have a plan. A plan for consciousness to reach a point of dependence with an illusion of independence. The crosser planning. So we're moving into next year. It'll be about the 18th, 19th of February. We move into the cross, a new background frequency cross for 400 years. We say goodbye finally to the crosser planning, which is in its final phase of meltdown now. That's why everything's coming to the surface, because everything that was planned is all being seen for what it was. Okay, it works. The Earth's incarnation cross, which changes every 400 years, it works on the precession of the equinox. It moves backwards. And so it goes through the hexagram. We know 1 to 6 lines. It's like a hierarchy. It's the first line's foundational, the top line is embodiment, and there's the process all the way through. And then these personal and transpersonal aspects in juxtaposition, which is that space in between. Now, when we come into, we're in a first line era right now. Over that 400 years, we go from the 6th line, and as time transpires, we go into the 5th, drop down after about 80 years. So it's on these 80-year sort of cycles with Uranus, and then we get to that 6th. Each line is for around about that amount of time, and then we get to the first line. So we go from the 6th of embodiment, and then we work our way back to the foundation as we move forward in time. So time becomes really interesting. We're moving back from embodiment to the foundation, and then we jump to another incarnation cross after 400 years. The Earth brings in, we get a different background frequency through the Earth and the Sun and the whole program. And then there's another incarnation cycle. A different frequency, birthing beings that are not like the ones birthed in the frequency before. There's always going to be subtle shifts. Now, when we get to 2027 of next year, we are going to have more subtle shifts, but there's also going to be deep crystallization of mutations that have been in place for hundreds of years, thousands of years. The emotional solar plexus center, which according to human design is the emotional center, partly motor, partly awareness center, will crystallize fully into an awareness center. The motor will drop away. We know the motor is emotions. Sadness and happiness and elation and bliss and terror and all of those different things that we can experience, melancholy, and it is especially the center of melancholy, and we all experience that to a degree, some far more than others depending on the differentiation in their chart, according to human design. So as we move into this time from the lunar cycle with the Chinese of the snake into the horse, I'm looking at human design. I'm like, we have 3 days really, today, tomorrow, and then the next day. We then move into the final year of the crosser planning. And I just don't think that it's just a coincidence. If you look at Christ, died on the first day, was raised on the third day. Okay, so there was only a full day in between from Christ's crucifixion to Christ's rising. People say he rose after 3 days. It wasn't after 3 days. He rose on the third day, crucified on the first, and rose on the third. There's a day in between. So there's a binary there. Okay, and that gap in between, you could look at it as the feminine principle in the I Ching, because the I Ching, either you have a flat line or you have a broken line. Okay, so then you have crucified one day, rose again on the other, and that gap in between. You would look at that as the feminine hexagram line. If you take the male hexagram line and you put it in between the two, you have a crucifix. Now I'm starting to sort of move away from the point here, but we could rabbit hole as much as we like. We could go down so many branches of how this interconnects, and that was just a taste of that. Because I could go into the cube and Saturn and how all of that works. Saturn with in Aries, 0 degrees of Aries. Saturn is, when we're in the 0 degrees of Aries, it's starting all over again. It's starting the clock, resetting things. Why with Saturn? Saturn governed our lifespan for thousands of years. And through our different evolutionary stages, we lived at different lengths of time. But for a long time, we were ruled by Saturn. And all the way up to 1781, we were ruled by Saturn. So our lifespan was thereabouts of about 30 years, because Saturn was the ruler of our lifespan. But we're now Uranian beings. Our lifespan is governed by Uranus. We still carry, however, because of the genetic continuity, we still carry the memory of what Saturn brought into our lives, which was it's a completion of a stage in one's life now. When Saturn was ruling, which it's interesting because Saturn has the cube on top of it. It has Metadon's cube there, which is, it's a 3D cube. Or if you look at the flat plane, it's a 6-sided geometry. And that is on Saturn. So really interesting there that when we look at the religions, a lot of the stuff that's falling away are these earthly religions. The fire horse also represents a new spirituality, a spirituality that is free from the confines of the material plane. Because in human design, what we learn in the 55th gate is that abundance is strictly a question of spirit. Abundance is strictly a question of spirit. We are in the final stages. We're in the line 3 today of, let me just go back. we're in the fifth line of the 30th gate and the 29th gate. Now, so I'm not screwing up my computer here. I'm going to look at the human geometry knowledge here. You know, the 29th theme in human geometry is commitment. It's embracing the spirit. It's endurance of spirit, saying yes to life. That's where we're at the moment, this saying yes to life. But saying yes to what? Because we have Neptune and Saturn and 0 degrees of Aries saying, you know, are you going to say yes to the illusion? Are you going to keep saying yes to what was? Or are you going to say yes to what you don't even know is there yet? The fire horse can cover ground at incredible speed, and especially the fire horse because it is not earthbound. It is not earthbound. A lot of the work that we've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years really in the healing work and the self-discovery and realization, which had a really in the West, well, it has been for years, decades, but really again deeper and deeper, people finding a spirituality or an awareness within themselves that was beyond themselves, really grasping and grappling with the idea of other and self. This fuel for transformation is the theme 30 where the sun is at the moment, this flame of longing, fuel for transformation. This is where we're still at. We're in the fifth aspect here. And so we don't want to jump the gun just yet, even though it is the fire horse, that I feel that there's this death. You know, I feel the fire horse is walking out on the stage. It's great. You know, we don't want it to just bolt the gate. There's a time where you want to emerge out on stage. If you look at the boxing fights and all that sort of thing, look at the build-up, right? The anticipation, the building of energy. When the song comes on and the fighter still hasn't walked out those doors from the dressing room. You know, it's that anticipation. That is a beautiful thing to hold for yourself, to build the anticipation, to feel the energy build within yourself, that when you move out, when you then show a display of I'm here. And that's what it is, because it's going to be, we're all going to have to come out fresh and new. Fire horses. But hold your horses for a moment, because again, as I said, we're only in the fifth aspect at the moment. Once we get to the 19th of February, this is when two things truly happen. We have that crystallization of the coming in, this moment of arriving and coming through, that final death, and rebirth, this 3-day kind of, how do we put it, initiation, personal initiation. You know, these 3 days where it's before you get out into the world as that fire horse energy moves and surges through your body, through your veins. Before that takes place, it needs to surge through you as your own personal experience first. And I'll show you why. The fifth aspect today is channel desire into meaningful action. So we are being called to action, but meaningful. Again, this is checking in with yourself. Longing without direction can dissipate, but when harnessed, interesting, right? Fire horse. But when harnessed, it becomes power. So today is about harnessing, realizing that the dropping away of the snake is gone. The snake is about your attachment to the material plane. Okay, this is what you really got to look at. Right in this window of 3 days, today being kind of like a death, tomorrow being in the belly of the earth, and the next day, that resurrection. Today we still have this harnessing the power. Longing without direction can dissipate. But when harnessed, it becomes power. Focused effort turns passion into tangible results. Okay, so this is really about allowing that passion within yourself. As I said, that build up. You know, the fire horse, like a dragon, builds. The fire comes from within, but it is fully out and seen in the open. The fire comes from within and is seen out in the open as a display. With Neptune and Saturn, you know, you've got to understand that Neptune is always hiding those. It's that spiritual aspect. It's always hiding something from us. Well, things are not going to be hidden anymore. The fire horse is going to be seen for what it is. It is passion unbridled. But you want to harness, it's unbridled, interesting, harness, bridle. Longing without direction can dissipate. The fire horse is the passion of longing. But without direction, it can dissipate. So this is my caution of this video here at the moment is, honor these 3 days as a death, rest, and rebirth process. Just saw 333. Okay, a death, rest, and rebirth process, so that when you come out on the 19th, it will be the beginning of the gate 55. We're in a new gate. We will be in a new gate. The fifth aspect for the 29th theme, which is the earth energy, which is commitment, inspire others through your unwavering dedication. Your commitment becomes a guiding light for those around you. This aspect demonstrates that perseverance is contagious, uplifting others to remain devoted to their own paths. I think I'm kind of passing that message on here. Now, let's move forward, because, like I said, 17th of February, fire horse today, that's great. But there is this window. I really feel this is important. I'm bringing this awareness out for you to really, I don't want people bolting the gate, burning their, firing up their jets too quickly and missing the opportunity that is waiting there for all of us. Because the transits, the way that the heavenly bodies are placed at the moment, what they are showing us, what's we need to see as is important is we're not finished a 6-day cycle here of that 30th gate of the sun and the 29th gate of the earth, which are both just in the 5th line at the moment, the 5th aspect according to human geometry. So again, we have desire and commitment, but this is really, again, as I said, this kind of personal over these, because tomorrow we'll have the 6th line, okay? And then at 8 a.m. on the 19th of February, we move into the 55th gate. And this is where it just makes so much sense to me. With the solar eclipse, this is really, it's an annular solar eclipse, so it's like a halo. Interesting, with origin coming through around this time. For me personally, I have many synchronicities that are showing what many have said about, a new spirituality, a new sort of understanding of education and self-governance and all that sort of thing. And that's what origin is all about. And then we move into the 55th gate, 8 a.m., just a little bit prior to that, but 7:51. We move into the 55th gate in the first line, okay? And what that brings us is the 55th gate is the gate of spirit. Abundance is strictly a question of spirit. Now with this fire horse, as I said, this is spiritual freedom. In the 55th theme, according to human geometry, I bring up the 55th theme, we have freedom. Freedom. Abundance, living the spirit of emotion. What's going to be covered in from the 19th? So on the 19th we move into this gate, and then we're going to go through a full cycle, lunar cycle, and then we're going to arrive back at that gate again in the sun. And that's when the crystallization of a mutation that's been in place for about 260 years, the final stage of a mutation, I should say, will crystallize. Begin to crystallize on the 18th, 19th of February, depending if it's UTC or wherever you live in the world. That is, we're looking at, that is truly where the threshold part of the year begins, on the 19th, and that's going to be the full cycle through. This is where we are truly going to experience the following 12 months after the 19th through to the 18th of 2027 as just such a unique window in space and time as a human experience. Like, just, we thought everything prior was pretty crazy, but this is this is truly going to be about awareness birthing itself into another age, another epoch, another... And for us to be alive at this time is just a deep, deep, deep privilege to be a witness to a change that, you know, we will be able to look back and go, wow, it was so different. It was so different. And this is so different. So that's what we will have. The 55th theme in human geometry will be freedom. And what we have here, the first aspect will be, from then, allow emotions to awaken the spirit. Emotions open a gateway to spiritual awareness and deeper inner connection. When we allow ourselves to feel fully, life's abundance can flow through us with greater clarity and meaning. So we're going to begin to get this understanding that your emotions are not here to just be a wave or this thing that takes you on this nervous system roller coaster. That's not the point of emotions. Emotions, and we're going to get to experience this, not fully for us that are already alive, but those that are born after 2027, many of them will have this acute awareness on the emotional plane. The emotional plane has its own frequency band, just as we have the mental plane, the physical plane, the vital plane, the astral plane, the etheric plane. All these different planes of nature. And they all evolve at different times, just like the planets all move at different paces. These geometries are all cycles within cycles and fractals within fractals. So what we're going to move into on this 19th of February, so the fire horse, we've got that there. Allow the fire within yourself to burn. Allow the direction to arise within yourself. You're coming out on the scene. You're coming out onto the scene of your movie. This is the new spirituality. You are truly stepping out as the heroine within your own movie, unbridled and free, burning with the external expression of your inner passion. That is what the fire horse is all about, and it will really begin, that moment will be ignited, as it says here. Emotions are the gateway. When we allow ourselves to feel fully, life's abundance can flow through us with greater clarity and meaning. Okay, it's all about truly feeling fully. Now, we're not going to be as cautious about feeling fully in the coming decades, and because of the background frequency and how different it will be, our awareness, all of us, to a different degree and in different ways, depending on our circuitry, will experience this new... we will have this evolution take place in which we are going to experience what we call emotions in a very, very different way. We will metabolize the awareness field of emotions far differently. Because that's what it is when it comes to circuitry and energy. Through the body, it's about the metabolism, it's about the metabolizing of that energy. Some of us will metabolize it, others will actually generate it and emit that spiritual awareness. Others will receive it in and amplify it and even distort it. But as the decades go on and the generations, depending on what we do as a humanity, whether we just continue on being killer monkeys and making a fucking mess of things, or whether we wake up to the fact of the divinity of our differentiated selves as, shining lights of illumination to truly, enlighten the other. That's what this whole mutation is all about, getting to that point where we're illuminating each other, but in a correct way, illuminating only and interacting with only those that are correct for us to interact with, so that the distortion in the field is far less. That resistance is reduced. And then on a mechanical level, we have far greater ease of movement, space and time, according to correct mechanics. So as we move into the 55th gate on the 19th, This is what we want to be aware of. This is what we're, waking up to, the abundance of spirit. We'll have the line 1, cooperation, the expansion of activity through cooperation with powerful forces through principled actions that guarantee continued support and engender prosperity. The potential to find the spirit through cooperation with powerful forces. Look at the wording here, powerful forces. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by aligning cooperation with support from powerful forces? In the Bible it says, we wrestle not with flesh and with blood, but with powerful forces, principalities, and powers in the heavenly places. Principalities and powers and all of that are these... they are the energies behind those that use power, these forces. The expansion of activity through cooperation with powerful forces, that can be, anything really. It could be human, it could be spiritual, it could be mental, emotional. The potential to find the spirit through cooperation with powerful forces. So on this kind of resurrection day, this beginning of the beginning of the end, the 19th of February 2027, the beginning of the end, there's the potential to find spirit through cooperation with powerful forces. We think about prayer, we think about religion, we think about spirituality, and wow, what a melting pot it has been over the previous 5 years especially. Spirituality at a pinnacle point that we'd never really seen before, but very, very kind of confused. A lot of information, almost too much information, too much knowledge, to the point where just about everyone has become an expert, which is good, but then also, what can we trust? And that's also what's going on here. The potential to find the spirit through cooperation with powerful forces. Is it going to be through prayer for you? Is it going to be through devotion, bhakti yoga, devotion to, a god or a partner or a family? To practice bhakti is to simply practice devotion. Is that going to be your trip? We're all so different. There are no right or wrong religions. There is just all the different ways in which, because there's all the different types of people, in which we can all find what is correct for us, each and individually, and then through the correct fractal connections, the correct people that you meet. If generators are waiting to respond, they'll connect with the correct people. If the manifestors are informing before they initiate things, then again, they'll have the correct people on board. If projectors simply wait for the invitation, again, they will be interacting with the correct people. And for the reflector, if they are simply waiting and moving with the cycles of the moon, they will move through life in their community in a way that is correct. Once we have correctness, we have coherence. Once we have coherence, we have harmony. Once we have harmony, we have a strengthening of the genetic continuity, because the organism itself that we know as humanity is functioning at its most geometrically correct. 444. The detriment here, the concentration on harmonic relationships with powerful forces that provide for continuity but not necessarily advancement. The potential to harmonize with powerful forces but not necessarily for the benefit of the spirit. So this is the detriment here. Some will just simply, in this resurrection of the fire horse, it's like a resurrection of your true self, mounting that fire horse. It's the passion within that needs to, those 3 days, as I said. For me today, I've kind of just stayed away from people. I really just feel it's important. And it's kind of like, and then tomorrow I can kind of see like being in the belly a little bit, the belly of the earth. And then the day after that, this kind of resurrection, that it just makes sense to be on the same day that we move into the 55th gate, which is the 55th codon, where the mutation takes crystallization next year. So this is a countdown. You know, this is the countdown. And some of us will concentrate more on those harmonic relationships, like you get on well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be advancement there. Just because you get along well, this is where we need to be really careful, as I was saying before, about spiritual and emotional awareness. This vacillation between that they're actually one and the same thing, but one is functioning under a motor and another is functioning under awareness, direct awareness. Okay, which we don't really have an understanding of. We don't really fathom well what that means. And we will once we're in that age, but we're not in that age yet. We're in a threshold year. Between the 19th and the 18th next year, we're in this threshold window portal kind of between two, time and space is going to feel very funky for so many people. Like, what is time? So, like, try and keep a track of the days. Try and keep a track of the time. That's one of the things that is truly going to get a little shake up for all of us. I don't know why I've said that, but that's what's come through. The detriment, the potential to harmonize with powerful forces, but not necessarily for the benefit of the spirit. We're moving into this epoch, this age, the rise of the sleeping phoenix, which takes place next year. Isn't it interesting that it's a fire horse that's moving us into the age of the sleeping phoenix? You see, the fire horse burns everything up. I truly feel that this fire horse energy is burning up our material attachment. Okay, that's what I truly feel is going on. And if we can allow ourselves this space, this is just my recommendation, to have this 3 days of a deeper introspection than outrospection, seeing the fire, letting it burn within you before it's fully set alight and you bolt into freedom from the 19th onwards. You allow the freedom of your authenticity to truly burn on the skin of your being, so it can be seen for all, so that your passion is worn on your sleeve. Then it's going to burn up all of those attachments that are not correct for you or the other. Burn all those attachments up, so that when we come into the rise of the sleeping phoenix, you see, the sleeping phoenix is not a burning bird. It is what's left. That's what rises out of the ashes after the flames are gone. An interesting time for us to go from the fire horse into the rise of the sleeping phoenix. You see, the phoenix is asleep right now in the fire horse. I mean, get your head around that. The phoenix is already inside the fire horse, waiting to be born. And it is birthed through purity of spirit. It is birthed through purity of freedom, sovereignty, and authenticity. This line 1, cooperation, the gate of spirit is all about abundance. Remember, abundance is strictly a question of spirit. That will be the only question that we have on our lips as we approach in the next couple of days. Do as you will with this. Again, I'm giving very broad, and so therefore it's almost quite watered down, because when I put things out broadly, it's a hazy picture. But at least you can kind of see the whole picture very faintly, because the linear fashion won't work anymore. The linear fashion will not work anymore as we move into the age. The sleeping phoenix, when we move into that time, it's about shared knowing, not shared knowledge. Very different. Shared knowledge is ajna focused, and we've been that for 90,000 years. Shared knowing is purely spiritual. Shared knowing is purely spiritual. Damn near shat my pants with that falling down behind there. Thought it was a good idea to put that up behind me. No, nothing got damaged. So, as you can see, for me, I come on and I do these things live. I don't edit any of it. Look, go out there and see how many videos are edited. it can be really helpful to follow people that will give quite a wide view of their knowledge or wisdom or whatever it is they have to share. And if they don't have to edit their videos, then you can see that they've embodied what it is they know. They've embodied what it is they know. I don't need to think about what it is I know because I embody it. And this is my point. As a 6-3 role model martyr, profile projector, with the incarnation cross of incarnation, transpersonal, it's just such an important part of my being to ensure that I'm sharing what it is I've embodied and found to be true. The only reason that a role model, let alone a role model martyr, can say what we say is that the only thing we're interested in sharing is that which we've embodied. The fifth line's very different. The fifth line, I just saw 2 5s. It was 50-50. The fifth line, it has a need to universalize. I don't really have a need to universalize. I can just see the importance of ensuring that I share what I've learned through the experience of my life. Because by embodying it, the codes that I bring to the world are really only worth sharing from here on in, from my 50th birthday onwards. Because that I now have the 6 line. I am a 6 line profile. Fortunately for me, coming into human design and then giving life to human geometry, I've learnt how my energy works correctly, and then I do. This is just such a different way of living life. Such a privileged way of experiencing this life. A privileged way. It feels very privileged to be aware. See, then it's not about good or bad, or whether it's hard or difficult, or this shouldn't be happening, and all of the story and the blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. It's about the gratitude that naturally arises. It's not forcing gratitude. It's about the gratitude that naturally arises from being truly present to what is, whether good or bad, the fact that you get to have an experience at all. And truly being with it. And then gratitude just arrives and arises on its own. So as we can see here, on the 19th, we really begin to ride the fire horse, I feel. Like I said, if you just flippantly yes, it's the year of the fire horse, and that's about all you know about it, if you're not delving into what that means metaphorically, if you're not having a look at what that means maybe metaphysically, and then look at it, astronomically and biologically. Understand the horse, understand fire, what those things represent. What does it mean when you put fire and a horse together? What does that mean? Look at the keynotes. Work it out for yourself, because that is the key. What do these things mean to you? What does it birth inside of you? What does it awaken inside of you? And as you move through today, with that awareness of saying goodbye to many, many things, letting them go, practicing non-attachment. And then tomorrow, possibly, if it feels correct for you, allowing yourself to really rest in the belly of the earth, be held by our Mother Earth in some way, whether it be physically or in meditation or figuratively, whatever that the case may be for you. And then on that third day, on the 19th, realizing that we're moving into a gate that's just not the same as every other day. It is a marker. It is a marker of the countdown of one more solar cycle, a full solar cycle to go before we're in a new age, a new time, a different background frequency. Okay, that's no small thing. I've been saying this for a long time. It's still not, no one was talking Fire Horse 2 years ago. I was talking The Rise of the Sleeping Phoenix 2 years ago. Yes, the Fire Horse is a big indicator. But it's really just arrived on the scene as a, what's the word for that you call for it? it's not anything that we're aware of for a long time, and it's just turned up as a special guest. 55 there. It's turned up as a special guest to the 55th gate, because in our DNA is more than just a fire horse going on. In our DNA is a mutation crystallizing at the behest of the planets, the sun, the program, the great divine, whatever that is. There's a new understanding of spirit rising upon the horizon for us. This portal year, unique, very different, a standalone year. It will stand in its own window. It will always be a doorway. It will always be a doorway. It's really, and this, I haven't learned this from anyone else. I can just feel it. 2026 is a standalone year. It is a portal. In 2027, when we return back, we're going to be in the 55th gate on the 19th. And when we go through that cycle, we'll be in it for 6 days, then we'll be out. And when we go through that full cycle of the sun one last time, and we enter into that 55th gate, there will be an activation of spirit that we've never known before. There's the potential for it to shock. Shock is in the chart. We'll look at that at some point. But the key at the moment is, as a projector, my guidance is, again, this year, that just because it's fire horse year does not mean there's a rush. But accumulate the information you need to know. Curate it with wisdom and awareness. Be present to what information you take in, because it's going to get real nuts with the information. It's going to be information overload. You think we've had information overload. The whole point now is to literally slam our mouths with a whole packet of cigarettes, because we've been caught smoking one. We're going to get the whole fucking pack shoved in our mouth, and we're going to have to smoke them right in front of our dad. You know what I mean? That old trick. We're going to learn a lesson about attachment. We're going to learn a deep lesson and grasp what it means to truly be human as a unique, differentiated being on this material plane. We're truly going to begin to understand what that means after thousands and thousands of years of moving through an evolution that's been all about homogenization, about us all being the same, all being one organism, all that. It's just going to be so different. What it's going to be like, I can't say. I'm no different than you. I'm no more special. No one is any more special than the other. We are each a vital part of the whole. And that's all we need to remember. So as you move forward into your 2026, so to speak, year, as we count down from this final 365 thereabouts days from the 19th, as we enter into the gate of spirit, mounting that fire horse, allowing the flame of passion within, desire, to be burning and evident on the outside. Don't forget to be as authentic about that as possible. In fact, you cannot have fuel. There cannot be fuel for your fire unless it is authentic. And so it is. Well, as always, don't be a dick. Let there be light. And until next time, bye for now.